Hey guys, back again. Okay, this is part 2. It's going to be the kind of picking up where I left off, looking at Cindy and Chris Watts, mother and son, and looking at sort of the toxic relationship between the two of them and some of the dynamics going on there. And we're going to get on back into it. This will probably be a 3 or 4 part thing, kind of a series, if you will. I've written down a lot of my points. I don't have a whole lot of space on my phone, so I have to upload and break them up in pieces. But I will get it all up for you guys, okay? And, you know, as usual, this is just for educational, entertainment purposes, just to give some perspective, spread awareness. You know, not advising anyone to do anything or take any actions, or not trying to, you know, spread hate or really anything like that. Just trying to put some perspective out there. And, you know, I personally feel like, I really do, that a lot of people are looking at this in a very narrow, through a very narrow lens. That they are looking at it and really blaming the wrong people. Just such a narrow perspective, blaming Chris Watts' wife. Everything from her, she was too controlling, she shopped too much, she didn't pay enough attention to him, she was emotionally abusive, she was a terrible mother. We've heard it all. And people are just, the perspective is just so narrow there. And people don't realize when someone does something like what he did, that shit is coming from a place that's very, very deep rooted. That shit doesn't come up overnight. And it didn't even come up in the 8 years that they were married. This shit goes way, way, way back to a time long before he ever met Shanann. Okay? It's always more deeply rooted than people assume or they can see on the surface. And a lot of times, yes, we are highly affected by our early caretakers. Those are the people. And no, we cannot blame our parents for what we go out and do. No, it was not Cindy and Ronnie Watts' fault. They are not accountable for what their son Chris went out and did to his family. I'm not saying that. Absolutely not. They had nothing to do with that. But what I can say is that our early caretakers, the people that we grow up with, mother and father generally, or whoever those people were, they do have a profound, lifelong effect on us, okay? And the way we were treated in our home, our earliest of caretakers, the first people we ever loved and trusted, all of that shit is deep-rooted, deeply programmed within us, okay? And from what I have gathered and taken in of Cindy Watts and the relationship between she and Chris and all the stuff going on in this case, what I've seen of her, I just feel like Cindy is one of the main antagonists in this whole scenario. She was always back there in Chris's mind, you know, the pressure to please her, the pressure to get her approval. And I feel like it was like that when he was a little boy. I do. I feel like his mother is a highly narcissistic woman. And there's just a lot of ins and outs. We're going to be getting into it in this video and probably a couple more after this when we're going to get to it. But I feel like she was one of the main stressors back in his subconscious that people are overlooking, okay? His mother's feelings all the time, worried about his family, his mother, even though his father was the one he really connected to, still, his mother always found a way to insinuate her feelings right into the middle of everything. And his mother, she was calling all the shots at home. She's the one that decided the whole family's not going to show up at the wedding. The most important day of their son's life. Come on. Okay? So, yeah, there's a lot of toxic energies going on here. Toxic ties. And I feel like even after Chris grew up, wanted to get married and move away to start a new family, Cindy was extremely resentful because this new woman had come in and taken her son away. Okay? We've even heard that. We've even heard Chris say that. That one of the main reasons his mother did not like Shanann is because, well, she felt like taking her baby away. This woman, extremely, extremely emotionally immature, and a lot of people are overlooking it, that she is one of the driving stressors in the back of his mind at all times. And that's just what I feel, okay? Yeah, you're going to have stressors in your adult relationships and in your marriage, of course, as they did. But, and I've been through a relationship like this with a guy, and he was even older than Chris. When you're an adult like that and you still haven't broken off mommy and daddy, you still haven't broken off of all these toxic dynamics going on and still trying to please your parents and get their approval, and you've got this meddling mother who acts like a child, who's always trying to, it's all about her damn feelings, and that's what I feel like was happening. And I think that majorly contributed, okay, to the stress in Chris Watts' brain. Constant and he, not emotionally mature enough to handle all this, to be able to cope effectively, reach for therapy, desperately wanting to please everyone in his life, especially the women. He grew up like that. Who the hell do you think taught him to be that way? He grew up extremely dependent on a woman's approval, not finding the approval for himself, not, from what it seems, not really taught to feel safe in his own identity. Apparently, when you grow up like that, that indicates that you were not accepted at home for who you were. Well, a highly narcissistic mother, they don't see their own child for who they are. They don't allow their own child to have an identity, their own strong, secure identity. So yes, so we're going to get on into some more of the aspects of this. I just feel like Cindy Watts was always in the background. And Chris had enough to deal with. He needed to be allowed to go ahead and grow up and attend to his marriage. Once we're grown, if we have toxic issues with our family members, or we're still kind of stuck in childhood, trying to meet the demands of our parents, and just all these toxic dynamics should not be there. They should be handled appropriately if they are there. And in this case, it was allowed to go on and on and on and on until it was fucking out of control. And people fucking died for it. Beautiful people lost their lives for this shit. And when I hear people sit up and finger Shanann, have the audacity to sit up and blame the woman who was murdered, she and her children, sit up and blame her. She was just a bitch. She did this and she did that. And not even realize how deep-rooted this shit is. Give me a break. Give me a break. Don't get me riled up now, y'all. You know I can get riled up. Yeah, so we need to be looking at all of the causes, okay? There is no one specific thing to blame. People want to do that. Well, it was because he wanted a mistress. Well, it was because he wanted money. He was tired of being broke, and he was tired of his wife spending all the money. It was because his wife abused him. It was because she controlled him. It was because this, that, and the other. It was because they want to narrow it down to one specific thing, but that's not it. Just like a lot of other creators have examined this, they called it the perfect storm. This shit, usually when somebody does something like this, it's usually been brewing in them for years. Likely since childhood, developing stuff that they have stuffed and ignored, and it leads up to very tragic events sometimes, you guys. So we need to take a look at all the factors that led up to Chris. First of all, we need to look at how he got this inability to cope. Okay? Too many people are focused on what Shanann did to him, or blaming Shanann, or narrowing this down. First of all, we need to look at How did this man get to the point in his life where he had zero ability to cope, zero ability to communicate, to the point to where he's going to kill his wife and children? How did he get to a point in his life where he was so dependent on the approval of a woman that he could never speak up about what he wanted? How did he get to the point? We need to go way, 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 way back and understand this man's mind and how it got that way, and who else was constantly playing into this, who was a constant thorn in his side, okay? But a lot of times men are reluctant to hold their mothers accountable. They are reluctant a lot of times to even acknowledge that they're angry with their mother. And they'll just be angry all the fucking time and they won't really know why. It's very hard sometimes for a man to even admit that he doesn't like the way his mother doesn't respect him. And I get that off Cindy Watts. This shit is really deep-rooted, okay? Alright, so we're going to remember from the beginning, guys. You can tell a lot about a family. You can tell a lot about people's nature and their character, okay? And remember, from the very beginning, the Ruseks, Shanann's parents and her family, were warm and open and accepting of Chris and willing to give him a chance. And that shows a lot of love and respect for their daughter, okay? It shows the family dynamics right there, of a high emotional intelligence, communication, family acceptance, loving their daughter as she is for who she is and the decisions she makes, her choice of partner, and they were warm and open and accepting that way, as it should be. Now, there is a drastic difference when it comes to the Watts family and how Cindy Watts instantly, Shanann, she didn't even know Shanann yet, okay? Instantly, upon the first few meetings, the first few gatherings they had, cookouts and whatnot, to get to know each other, Cindy began instantly throwing out judgments and dislike of Shanann off the bat, okay? Making references to how someone her age would have a house like this, and just from the very beginning, okay, and throughout the whole time, Cindy Watts was never, ever open and warm and accepting and trying, at least for her son's sake, to, and this tells us something. It tells us a lot about the emotional intelligence of Cindy, that family. It tells us where Chris came from, what he grew up in, how Cindy likely treated him. And it just shows a very big lack of respect for her son. Lack of love and real respect for his identity, his choice of partner, and even giving that a chance. It was all about Cindy from day one. Okay, we have to remember this, and it tells us a lot. It tells us a lot about Chris and Shanann, who they are, what they were raised in, what their minds were like, their dispositions. Yes, you can tell a lot. I would love to believe that all humans can grow and change, even the worst narcissists, even the most toxic of people, because I have a lot of love for people, and I want to believe that people can heal and grow, but, a lot of times for these really high-level narcissists who have been that way all their life, it's almost impossible for them, because it requires self-reflection. It requires that we can take a look in there at all the dark, dirty secrets, all the shame, all the things we've been through, and admit that we were once that person. Admit that we did something. Admit something bad happened. It takes being able to do that, and high-level narcissists just cannot bear the thought of it. That's why some of us can grow and heal and change and balance out our narcissism and have more empathy and compassion. And that's why some cannot. That's why some people remain high-level, self-absorbed, freaking narcissists all their life. Some people just cannot bear. Oh no, I never did any of that. Their ego is so fragile and so damaged and so afraid that they have to overcompensate constantly. And if you even dare, try to get the idea across to them that, look, In order for you to heal and become a better person and treat people better, have better connections, better relationships, not live in that web of narcissism acting like you do, you're going to have to take one for the team. They don't really get it. They are so threatened by revealing their innermost. Well, that's what psychotherapy requires, and that's what healing requires. You have to be okay with revealing your innermost crap and admitting that you might have some fucking flaws, that you might have some issues and you need to work on them. And a lot of high-level narcissists just, it literally, I've been around a lot of people like this, working on childhood issues and sensitivities and things like this for years. And I've literally seen them triggered back to being a small child. Like literally, if you bring up to them, look, this is what's going on with you, and it literally, they're terrified of exposing and taking a look at that. They will basically stop all of the progress by, you're hurting me. Why are you saying that about me? You cannot get through that brick wall. I think it has to do something with damage in early childhood, the way it shapes the brain. In some people, I've learned through research that something to do with the prefrontal cortex, the area that governs empathy and certain things, that they just can't do it. I've been battling this for a lot of years, man, around people that I just can't seem to break through to and let them know, I don't want to hurt you. Nobody wants you to hurt. We just want you to take a look at yourself so that you can change these things. Some of these people just cannot get past that. And they literally think they are zapped back to being about 5 years old when somebody was ridiculing them and at the fragile time in their life where they really needed they needed the guidance and love and support for their self-esteem and didn't get it. Woo, it's a big old mess. It is a big fucking mess. It can be confusing with narcissistic people with traumas and wounds, and because when they say it's hurting me, and when they say all these things, it's really true. A lot of those things really did happen to them. Somebody really did ridicule and fuck with their head or put them through something in childhood. They really do feel like they are being attacked. But at the same time, they use that as a way to manage you down, to get you off of them, to deflect and to keep you emotionally manipulated and gain pity from you and get what they want. It's all a little toxic web. So it's both. It's actually true on both ends. They do really feel that stuff. They've always felt it. It's true. But they also use it as a way to manipulate and manage others, okay? Control others by using coercion and all that stuff, okay? A lot of times, in relationships, people who grew up in trauma or people in toxic situations or with unresolved issues, you'll see people, actually, they slip in and out of their adult and wounded inner child a lot in arguments in their relationships. A lot of things tie back to the childhood. And sometimes you'll literally see people regress into their child self with certain issues in an adult argument. But most of the time, the place where this stuff all comes out is the romantic relationship. That is the place where a person usually lets their guard down the most and they feel the most comfortable to start letting some of these things out. And a lot of shit comes up behind closed doors. They don't feel as comfortable doing it with family or friends or all that. And I've even caught myself doing stuff like that in relationship arguments, and I had to become very aware of the difference. Okay, how I'm reacting, is this from the present day adult relationship? Or is it coming from a childhood trauma, a lack inside of me, something that happened in the past? Or is it both? Many people are not even aware enough of their own emotions and knowing themselves well enough to do this. And I think a lot of this was going on inside the Chris and Shanann Watts relationship. I think that there were things that just weren't getting recognized. But it's important that people know how to catch themselves and self-examine and work on it. It's like you have to be in the mindset of, if you have these types of issues, just being aware. when you're getting heated or you're getting out there in an argument with someone or a reactive feeling, it's like, okay, do I need to be holding my partner accountable? You have to be self-aware. You have to ask yourself questions, because this is valid. What I feel is valid, but I also realize I'm really getting heated. You have to notice these things in yourself. Okay, this is a valid argument with my partner. I see that they're doing something that I don't really care for, or it feels a certain way to me. But why do I feel way more angry about that than I should? Sure, my anger's valid. They did this. But there's more to it with me. Am I blowing this too far out of proportion because of what mom and dad did or didn't do? Is this something way, way back buried in me that I'm kind of throwing all over my present day partner? These are things we need to be very aware of, and I think a lot of that was going on with Chris Watts. A lot of misguided, misdirected resentments and feelings and angers and all kinds of things in him that he didn't even have a fucking clue. He was so detached from himself. And what I'm getting at is Cindy Watts, I feel like, is at the ringleader of all this. I believe it all started back in his childhood. Chris Watts was so detached from who he was, what his real feelings were, how to cope with any of his feelings. Holy shit, just so far removed. Just kind of going through life robotically. How do you think he got that way? Who do you think trained him to be that way? Very important, okay? Those of us who have issues or childhood traumas or whatever, it's important that you know yourself. Be aware going into a relationship. Be aware of these things. Catch yourself. I had to do it in my relationship. I would catch myself getting so legitimately angry or hurt or insecure if they did something on purpose to make me feel that way. Yes, that was valid. But I noticed it was more volcanic in me than it should have been. It was way more overwhelming of an emotion than it should have been for just what my partner did. Yes, it was valid, and yes, I had a right to be angry and feel that way. But I had to realize, whoa, okay, you're angry because, remember, your mother kind of acted this same way. What is this reminding you of, Tam? And I would literally catch myself in an argument with my partner when he would make me feel invalidated, or he wouldn't want to listen, or sometimes he would gaslight or whatever, fucking deflect the situation. Ooh, I would feel it bubbling up in me a little bit more than what should have been given to my partner. Yes, it should have made me angry. I had a right to feel that way with him. It's valid, okay? But we also have to recognize when it's more of a feeling that should even be put on our partner. And I think a lot of that was happening with Chris and Shanann. I think a lot of his shit was stemming from somewhere else. And it's very important to catch yourself. And I would have to catch myself a lot. Wow, I'm feeling way more than I should be feeling about this little situation right here with us. Oh, I know what's going on. Fuck. I'm still mad because of all those years my mother ignored me. She would not listen. I could not get through to her. She just wouldn't see what... Okay, now I remember. And I would literally catch myself step by step and evaluate, okay, what is real? What is legitimate and present day with my partner? And what else do I need to sort out from the past? What is extra anger and trauma from my past that I haven't worked through yet, and he's actually triggering it? See? You see how the details and the layers and the things we have to be aware of. And it's this but that at the same exact time. Yes, he was doing something to trigger me. Yes, it was valid. Yes, he needed to be accountable. Yes, all of my emotions towards him were valid. But the bubbling up of intensity, it going too far within me was coming from a place in the past. It didn't all belong to him. And I needed to recognize that and sort that out each and every time I felt it. And a lot of people don't do that. That's right. A lot of people in relationships are not even aware of this stuff. They will not do that much inner work on themselves and strive that hard to heal and know the difference between what's fair to put on their partner and handle and what is not fair to that partner, what is coming from childhood. This is crucial. A lot of people just check out, they do substances, they continue blaming the partner and unleashing all of that childhood shit without even stopping to be aware of who they are really still angry at. Oh yes, oh yes. Many highly narcissistic types are absolutely terrified to look at themselves. Terrified to know that much about themselves. To look in there, to know themselves. Terrified of it. They've been avoiding themselves for years with the false identity. And that seems like a paradox or a contradiction because they're so self-absorbed. Yeah, I know it's confusing. But they're that way because of lack. That is why they're that way. And inferiority. It's all overcompensation, not true love of their self in the most healthiest of ways whatsoever. No. It's a very toxic, lacking, terrified, grasping, desperate love of self. It's not even a love of self. It's trying to get the world it's trying to fill that hole. Yeah, people need to understand this kind of thing. It's major detachment from true self a long time ago. And it's the false self they present to the world. It protects them. So we know that within the Watts family, we've heard Chris say and other people talk about how feelings weren't something they discussed. Basically, we're gathering a picture here that, he was taught to stuff his feelings. And we're going to get a lot deeper into the dynamics between Cindy and Chris. I'm going to have a second part to this where we're going to be talking about the narcissistic mother and son interactions and dynamics and what she's really doing instead of really showing love and respect for her child. So we know this. We know that they are a family that doesn't talk about feelings. And a lot of times these types of mothers failed, somewhere when the child was growing up. And they were not very good mothers or not very attentive. And as they age, sometimes they want to do mommy all over again. See, there's just a lot of things at play here. Even though the child is grown, and it can become very sick. And I've even seen it. I've seen it different times in my life in certain situations with people. And there's just nothing worse, than these types of mothers or mother-in-laws. The narcissistic, emotionally immature, still needy kind who love their child by keeping them manipulated, controlling them, interfering constantly, meddling constantly, making it all about mommy's feelings. It's really sick, and they need help. And really, they need to back the fuck off into their place when their son starts dating or get married. Period. That's what they need to do. These types of mothers need to take responsibility and go get a therapist. That's the way I see it. Period. And I've encountered this shit before. And where mother and son were both emotionally immature, and all of these dynamics were at play, and oh my God, I was having none of it. My attitude was, we're grown-ass motherfuckers. I don't live like that. My parents will respect my life and my boundaries or else. That's just the way I'm seeing it. But I wasn't stuck in some sick fixation of still trying to please my parents and constantly put their feelings first or have to work so hard for their approval, even after I was married. No, but I had therapy too. These are some things. I know I've just thrown some stuff out there at y'all. And I'm going to have to go ahead and wrap this up. But these are important things, to be taught. Your rights, your boundaries, how to assert and enforce them. And if you were raised in any kind of dysfunction or toxic family, you won't know that stuff. You will have to have a mentor or someone to guide you and teach you that you have a right You know, you don't have to just sit up all your life and, oh, my family, and oh, I'm not doing them right, and oh, I'm not making my mother happy. And a lot of us that came from trauma or dysfunction in our childhood, we still, no matter how much therapy, no matter how much we work on ourselves, sometimes we still have those issues of wanting to please our parents, wanting to get their approval. I still deal with issues with it sometimes, but I've done a lot of work on loving myself and approving of myself. But I still have a close friend who's working really hard. He's still stuck in some of these issues and just, no matter what, cannot get the approval of his father, and even in middle age. And there's a lot of dynamics there that are very painful and outraging for him. And, you know, so we're working on a lot of issues. I've had to go through it. It's about learning to approve of yourself. And when a person wants to break away and start a family, it's time for them to grow up. And it's great to stay in contact with your family and love your family and stuff like that, but Cindy Watts should have taken her feelings and butt the fuck out. Let that son grow up, let him be happy, let that man live his life, and I don't believe Chris Watts got any of it whatsoever. I don't think he got any therapy or mentoring as he was growing up and growing older about all of the wiring that went on with him and his mother in his childhood. I think he brought all of those issues from childhood right into his marriage. Right on into his marriage. And I think this stuff goes way, way back. I've got more for you guys. We are going to finish the second half of this. I've got some other dynamics to get into. So please stay tuned. Join me for the second part. I'll have it up for you guys pretty soon, okay? Thank you for watching.